On this New Year's Eve, ready to ring in 2025. Colorful and complex celebrations across the globe with new safety concerns.
I went to the left and my son went to the right and it hit my son.
Plus, Gaza healthcare under fire.
From the destruction of buildings and facilities to the killings of patients.
The UN condemns Israel's attacks on hospitals.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Chris Galis.
Of course, it is already 2025 in many parts of the world. New Zealand, as always, was among the first countries to ring in the new year. This video from Auckland. And on this side of the world, the clock is winding down on 2024. Good evening and thanks very much for joining us. The festivities are just getting started across parts of Canada and the U.S. Extensive security measures are in place at North America's biggest New Year's Eve celebration in New York's Times Square. As Bianca Facchinei reports, safety is the top priority.
2, 1, Happy New Year!
America's biggest city, preparing for one of the most exciting nights of the year.
Everything worked perfectly today. We're ready. Let's celebrate.
Over 1 million people are expected to be in New York City's Times Square on New Year's Eve. Authorities say safety is a priority.
We'll make sure each one of those who come here to visit and enjoy the ball drop will be safe.
The NYPD says there are no threats against the event, but officials have been operating in a heightened threat environment ever since the October 7th terror attacks in Israel last year. And the deadly Christmas market attack in Germany earlier this month reinforced concerns.
The public can expect to see a tremendous amount of police resources deployed throughout the area and across the city.
That includes the use of drones to monitor anything out of the ordinary from up above.
We're looking for any suspicious activities, as the police commissioner had mentioned, and we're also looking for any type of anomalies. Maybe somebody may be having a medical emergency.
In addition to being used for policing, drones have also become a form of entertainment, but not as much this New Year's Eve.
Oh no, I don't think they're supposed to be falling.
Drone shows from Texas to South Carolina were canceled after several fell during a holiday event in Orlando, injuring a 7-year-old boy.
Before they went down, the green one went straight at us, and I went to the left and my son went to the right, and it hit my son.
In New York, tonight's festivities begin at 6 p.m. Eastern, right before rain is forecast to start and potentially last until the early morning, though it's not expected to deter tourists. Bianca Facchinei, Global News, Washington.
Calls for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to resign are following him into the new year, with members of Quebec's Liberal caucus now calling for him to step down. A source with direct knowledge told Global News Quebec Liberal MPs have reached the consensus that Trudeau should leave. The Ontario and Atlantic caucuses recently reached the same conclusion, meaning a vast majority of Liberal MPs now want the Prime Minister to step aside. Conflict continues, especially in the Middle East, where the United States says it's carried out attacks against Houthi targets in Yemen. U.S. Military Central Command says the strikes started Monday and continued today within Houthi-controlled territory. Facilities that produce and store weapons were targeted, an effort to limit the rebel group's ability to threaten military and commercial vessels in the region. The Iran-backed group has vowed to continue its attacks in the Red Sea if no ceasefire deal is reached in Gaza. And the United Nations, meanwhile, is shining light on the deteriorating situation in Gaza with a damning new report on Israeli attacks against hospitals. As Redmond Shannon reports, the UN's Human Rights Office is raising concerns over a healthcare system on the brink of collapse and the possible war crimes that helped get it there.
New Year's Eve in Gaza, with little to celebrate or to look forward to. We are dead inside. We are not living, says this woman. At a field hospital, patients were woken in the night as the tent started to flood. We're drowning in work and in the tents, says this medic. The tent sits outside Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis. It is one of the hospitals raided by Israel during the 15-month war. Israel says Hamas and other militants use medical facilities for cover. The United Nations says Israel has not provided enough evidence.
From the destruction of buildings and facilities to the killings of patients, staff and other civilians, raising serious concerns about Israel's compliance with international law.
A new UN report says Gaza's health system is being brought to the brink of total collapse by Israeli raids.
Intentionally directing attacks against hospitals and places where the sick and wounded are treated, provided they are not military objectives, is a war crime.
The UN says there must be independent and transparent investigations. Israel, though, is unlikely to engage. Its poor relationship with the UN has deteriorated even further during the war. The report only analysed the first 9 months of the war, but the raids continue. Israel says it detained 240 people at Kamal Adwan Hospital this week, among them its director. The head of the World Health Organization decrying the closure of northern Gaza's last major hospital.
Peace is and will always be the best medicine.
Despite efforts toward a ceasefire, few in Gaza are holding their breath for peace in 2025. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
And just 2 days after undergoing prostate removal surgery, Benjamin Netanyahu was back in Israel's parliament today to help pass his government's 2025 budget. The legislation, a wartime austerity package of tax hikes and spending cuts, was at risk of failing after far-right hardliners threatened to pull support. The bill passed by 1 vote. Russia and Ukraine traded dozens of attacks overnight. Sirens rang out across Kyiv after Moscow launched an aerial attack with drones and missiles. Russia claims it successfully struck a Ukrainian airbase and factory. Ukraine's military released a video which claims to show a Russian helicopter being downed over the Black Sea. Kyiv claims it's the first time a Ukrainian naval drone has been able to down an air target in the region. There are also reports of damage at an oil depot in Russia following a Ukrainian drone attack near the Belarus border. And the flow of gas into Europe is being severely restricted tonight following the end of a 5-year deal between Ukraine and Russia. Kyiv has refused to negotiate a new supply deal with Russian energy giant Gazprom as its war with Moscow approaches the end of a 3rd year. The EU has significantly reduced imports of Russian gas ever since its full-scale invasion began in 2022, but a number of eastern member states still largely depend on the Russian supply. A pre-flight inspection of a Jeju air passenger plane hours before it crashed in South Korea found no issues. 179 people were killed when the plane crash-landed on Sunday without its wheels deployed. Today, the company's CEO said nothing abnormal was noted in the landing gear. Officials from the U.S. and Boeing have joined the investigation. Also in South Korea, a court has now issued an arrest warrant for impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol over his short-lived attempt at imposing martial law earlier this month. Yoon is being investigated for inciting insurrection and abuse of power. The warrant was issued after he ignored multiple summons for police questioning. Yoon's legal team says they plan on challenging it in court, arguing the martial law declaration was within Yoon's constitutional authority. A brazen and bewildering robbery in Toronto. Coming up, the construction vehicle that was used to break into a bank. In BC, a huge fire has destroyed parts of an historic coastal village. It happened in Telegraph Cove on Vancouver Island. Firefighters say multiple houses and buildings have been destroyed, including the museum, restaurant, and part of the historic boardwalk. In Toronto now, police are searching for suspects after an early morning bank heist. The bandits made off with the cash, but it's the way they took it that's grabbing attention. Seán O'Shea reports.
An ATM ripped out of this TD Bank branch by thieves overnight. An unapproved withdrawal using a construction equipment backhoe. one that left the ATM on the ground in pieces.
It's astonishing how bold and brazen people are. You know, who came up with that idea? How could they do that? I mean,
an idea that's catching on with bank thieves. In nearby Pickering last month, 4 suspects pulled a smash and grab using the same technique with a backhoe. They escaped in a pickup truck and are still being sought. In Newfoundland, thieves also using a backhoe ripped an ATM out of a Royal Bank branch. 4 suspects were arrested and faced charges in that case. And south of Seattle last month, 3 thieves using a stolen backhoe attached a chain to an ATM and ripped the bank machine out of its enclosure. Videos show the ATM in the back of a getaway vehicle with police in hot pursuit. They gave up the chase, saying it was too dangerous.
It's still violent. It's not their place. You don't go robbing banks. You don't go taking walls out.
In this ATM theft, customers said they were surprised at how thieves did it without threatening anyone before dawn.
Dash and grab, I guess this is.
My husband had to go get some money, U.S. money at the bank today, and he just said to me, could have gotten a lot more if you had a backhoe.
Police aren't saying how much money was stolen, although global news sources say a machine like this could contain tens of thousands of dollars before a holiday. The bank is closed for the week to the disappointment of some customers.
Yeah, I wanted to get some money. I needed to pay my housekeeper.
Toronto police have so far not released security video of what happened here or provided descriptions of the backhoe bank bandits. Chris.
Seán O'Shea in Toronto. Thank you, Sean. Sober celebrations ahead. Why more people than ever are reevaluating their relationship with alcohol. If you're celebrating the new year tonight, and I hope you are, there's a good chance you'll be popping a bottle of champagne or some other alcoholic beverage. But more and more people are making a different choice. Heidi Petracek explains what's behind the growing sober curious trend.
When Canadians mark the new year, many will celebrate sober.
We're going out for brunch, so I'll probably see what mocktails they have on the menu.
Georgia Helliwell's birthday falls on New Year's Eve, but there won't be any post-party hangover. The 23-year-old doesn't drink.
It's not like I feel really any peer pressure to be a big part of the drinking scene. I certainly don't feel like I need alcohol to be social.
In fact, a recent Leger survey of Canadian zillennials, those born between 1992 and 2003, found 32% don't drink alcohol at all.
Maybe drinking has started to feel a little bit problematic, or it's not serving them the way that it used to, and they're just starting to question it.
Enter the Sober-ish shop in Halifax, which offers a bevy of alcohol-free beverages like beers and mocktails.
My generation going through university, it was about how fast can you down this beer? And it's a completely different culture now with the younger generations.
The global market for non-alcoholic spirits, valued at more than $400 million, is expected to double the next decade. Here, Canadian products make up 90% of what's on the shelves.
As the industry evolves, options are going to continue to get better and more convincing of an actual spirit.
A taste test by yours truly of a handcrafted mocktail reveals,
wow, that is delicious.
The missing alcohol really isn't missed, especially for anyone who has to work New Year's Day. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
And television news buffs are mourning the loss of journalist Aaron Brown.
For those of you just joining us, let's just briefly recap what we know.
Brown is best known for guiding CNN viewers through the 9/11 terrorist attacks. He spent the earlier years of his career working for ABC and became a professor at the University of Arizona after retiring from public broadcasting. Brown was 76 years old. And that is Global National for this New Year's Eve. I'm Chris Galis. From Australia to Dubai, many nations in earlier time zones are starting the new year off with a bang. We leave you tonight with some of the most spectacular fireworks displays from countries that have already ushered in 2025. Thanks for watching and Happy New Year.